In today's video, we're going to go over all things location targeting setup for Google Ads. If you're going to be running Google Ads for a local business, whether it's yours or somebody else's, we're going to cover location targeting setup, things you want to include, things you want to exclude, and then also some things you might want to do with your keywords to make sure that you get your location set up properly and to try to filter out some out of area leads on your Google Ads campaign. So if you're new here, my name is Chris. I cover all things Google Ads and local lead generation. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let me get my face out of the way here on the screen and we'll just kind of jump right into this content and I'll show you how you want to set up your location targeting. All right, so I've hopped over to a demo account so I can show you a fresh setup and some kind of tips and tricks you can use to actually get your location targeting set up for your campaign. Now in this example, I'm just using Portland as a demo location. Obviously, this is going to apply to wherever you're located, but there's going to be a few different options that you have when it comes to location targeting. So let me just delete this and we'll kind of start from scratch here. Now, what you might be tempted to do, and this is something you can do, but I'm going to kind of explain why you might not want to do it if you're running ads for a local business, is you can just click radius right here. You could literally just drop a pin right here on Portland. And doing that will just show, your ads to whatever radius you define in that location area. So you can click on this, remove it. You can do it in 10 miles. You can drop a pin there. You can do radius targeting. That's all good and that will function. But what I like to do and what is kind of preferred is you want to do your location targeting much more granular, because further on down the line with your campaign, you're going to be able to essentially do bid adjustments or exclusions based on locations that are performing well or based on locations that are underperforming. So what you can do is you can literally either bid more for a certain location or just completely cut out locations that are just not spending the budget well or getting cost per lead that's just too high. So there's a handful of ways we can do this. So you can either click on this box right here and you can enter in either a city or a zip code or an entire county or an entire state. And you can do it that way. So if I just wanted to target Portland, I can type in Portland, hit include right here, and it's just going to target all of Portland. But in my case, kind of what I was just talking about, what I like to do is I like to do things a little bit more granularly. If I was only targeting the area of Portland, I'd want to do this by zip code. If you were targeting a wider area, maybe you do it by county, like if you're targeting an entire state. But for a lot of local businesses, it's going to be kind of a general metro city or town area. And what I like to do is I like to go by zip code. So similar to how we just did the Portland targeting, I'm just going to remove that. You can type in a zip code in the area. And another thing you can do, you can technically target by, individual cities or towns in the area. So if I just wanted to target Gresham, you can just target that way. But this is a way that I don't really like doing it too much. I prefer doing zip codes over this, because if you start typing in all these different areas, you're just going to see gaps in between the location targeting and it just doesn't really fit together too well. So I like to go zip code by zip code. And there's a couple ways you can do this. Just like we were targeting the towns, you can actually type in zip codes here, and that will pull up the zip codes in a drop down. You can target by zip code. But one thing that Google has that's actually really handy is there's this little box up here where there's this little toggle. You can hit toggle. It says show all areas. If you hit this drop down, and you can essentially change this to kind of like pull up whatever you want to try to target here. So you can filter by postal code, neighborhood, county, congressional district, city. I'm going to select postal code. And now this is literally going to give me an overlay of all of the zip codes in the area. I can just click on them and hit include and just go through the area that I want to target. And it makes selecting zip codes super easy, because what you used to have to do is literally just Google the zip codes you wanted to target, and then you'd have to enter them in manually and do it all that way. But with this handy little tool that Google gives us, we can literally just go through and just start selecting all the zip codes that we want to show up for, and it makes it really easy. So this is the first thing I would do, is I'd identify the locations you want to target, and then I'd go through, and then based on how wide your location targeting is, you can do either zip codes if it's just going to be like a city or a metro area, or if you're doing an entire state, maybe you do counties or something like that. Now, the next really important thing we need to kind of cover when it comes to location targeting is we need to talk about exclusions. So just like you can target locations like this, you can also exclude locations, as this is going to be really, really important when it comes to trying to filter out of location phone calls, because a lot of the time nowadays people have, mobile phones and all that. and they're not always going to be in the same place at the same time. So somebody could work in Portland, but maybe they go back up to Washington State and they live in Vancouver, Washington at the end of the day. And maybe that kind of back and forth every day, Google thinks that this person lives in Portland because they're there every single day. Maybe they show the ad even when they're at home, and it just kind of confuses Google a little bit. So things are not perfect, but with layering in these exclusions, we can try to prevent some of that. So for example, let's say you're advertising in Portland, but you don't want to show your ads up in Vancouver, Washington. Similarly to how we would include things, we can literally just start excluding things we don't want to show up for. So if we don't want the ads to show up north up here, I would start layering in these exclusions to try to prevent our ads from showing up across the border. Now, for the sake of time in this video, I'm not going to go through and do all of this, because typically what I would do, similar to how you saw in the other example, I pretty much get all my location targeting set up. I try to exclude everything up to the border of that location targeting. And then what I do is I will zoom out past that. And given we have this handy little tool right here, we can show by county. And then what I would do is I would zoom out and then try to get rid of every other county in the state that I don't want my ads showing up for. So essentially what we're doing is we are targeting the areas we want and then zooming out bit by bit and then excluding everywhere else that we do not want our ads showing for. So again, I'm not going to do this entire state in this video. You can see right here, we have a kind of conflict of interest right here. So what I'd do in this case, I would probably remove this, and then I would probably do zip code targeting up to here and then just try to hit zip codes for the rest of this county. But again, I'd go through this entire state, exclude all the other counties, and then I would go a step further. I'm actually going to turn this off for this next step, but what I will do beyond this is you want to zoom out and then exclude every other state that you do not want your ads showing up for. So this is where there's a little bit of manual labor here. Unfortunately, from what I understand and from my knowledge, you can't just like click on other states and then exclude them. That would be really convenient. But what you can do is if you don't want your ads showing up in Washington, you just type in Washington, select the state, hit exclude, and then what you want to do is go through every other state and just type it in, Idaho, exclude, etc., go through all the states, exclude them, and then on top of that, what I usually do is I will exclude Canada, and I will exclude Mexico. So obviously this is advertising in the United States. That's how I do it here. If you're in another country, whether you're in Europe, Australia, wherever you might be, kind of do it for what's relevant for you. In this case, that's how I do it. I will pretty much start by targeting the areas that I want to target really granularly, take a step back, exclude zip codes up to the border, or however you did your initial targeting, whether it's counties or whatnot. Exclude up to the border of your targeting as close as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like, don't worry about this being perfect. Take it a step further back, and then I do the counties, and then I take it a step further back beyond that. Then do the other states, Canada, Mexico, to try to exclude as much as possible of that out of location, search volume or lead volume, to try to control that as much as possible. Now, when you do all that, this is pretty much what it should look like. Like I mentioned before, Canada, Mexico, all the other states. And this is the example from the beginning of the video. You should have something that looks kind of like this. You can see in this particular example, I'm actually glad I pulled this one up. I had to do a radius targeting at either end here because in this case, the zip codes did not really line up perfect. So you're going to find in your case, it might not be perfect. Like the client doesn't want to go out past this point up here, but the problem is that this entire area is a zip code. So I had to do a little bit of finagling, do radii in this case, to try to kind of keep that location targeting without just targeting that entire zip code. So you might have to play around with it a little bit, but in a lot of cases, you can just do zip codes up to, kind of where you want to target and then sort of exclude based around that. But this is what it should look like. But there's one other thing that I wanted to talk about really quick that doesn't really deal with this whole setup, but kind of deals with your search traffic and things that could show up just in search in general outside of the location targeting. And one thing that's really important to note before we actually move on to the final step here is that when you have your location targeting set up, you have it set up how you want to make sure that you have the right location options selected right here, because this can essentially create a situation where you're getting phone calls from people that are outside of your targeted location. So under location options, you want to make sure you have presence, people in or regularly in your included locations selected when it comes to your targeting options, because if you leave it on this first one, this recommended option, is it can show your ads to people who show an interest in your targeted areas. So for example, if we look at a map really quick and you're advertising in Portland and somebody is in Vancouver or they're up in Seattle or whatever, and they're searching for, let's just say dumpster rental Portland, but they're living up in Tacoma, your ads can still show for them up in Tacoma, and we don't want that to happen. So we want to make sure that we have this selected because it's going to try to filter out any of those kind of searches that are coming from outside your location and then keep all of that to within your location. So make sure you have this option selected before you actually finish everything up with your location targeting. And that one last thing that you might want to include in your campaign is negative keywords for areas you do not want your ads to show up for. So what I like to do on every single campaign that I launch is obviously I set up the location targeting like I just showed you, but then what I do is I will actually add in negative keywords for all the states that I don't want to show up for. I'll add in negative keywords for all the abbreviations of those states that I don't want to show up for. And additionally, what I've started doing recently, because I've noticed this in terms of like search traffic I've been seeing, is I will actually kind of zoom out on the map, based around where the client is showing their ads. And I will pull the cities of other kind of relevant areas. You don't have to get every single city, but this is just another layer if you want to be kind of safe and do what you can to try to filter as much of it out as possible. Is I will pull cities that my client will not be showing ads in. So in this case, obviously I'd pull Vancouver. If they don't want to show their ads in Vancouver, I'd pull Salem. And then I just go around the map like this and just pull out all these different city names that I don't want searches showing up for, because you can set all this stuff up, as best as you can. But at the end of the day, like I said, Google is not going to be perfect. And they're still going to show your ads for, somebody could be, again, working in Portland, but maybe they live in Salem, so they're at work and they search for something like dumpster rental Salem or something like that while they're at work in Portland, and your ads can show up for that. And sometimes clicks can happen as a result, but adding in that additional layer on top of the location filtration can help you to try to filter some of that out as well. And it's just kind of layering all that together to try to keep Google as constrained as possible. All right, so with all that covered, you should have your location targeting set up to try to filter out as much irrelevant traffic and as many irrelevant leads as possible to kind of constrain things to your targeted location. And if you do all that, like I said, Google is sometimes not perfect, but this can help to keep things as clean as possible and to also, like I mentioned before, give you the opportunity to adjust things more granularly. So if you wanted to trim out areas, make a bit adjustments further down the line, targeting by zip code or kind of more granular areas is going to allow you to actually do that further down the line. So hope this video gave you a little bit of insight on location targeting, how to set it up properly. And if you are somebody who wants to DIY all of this yourself, you want to build the campaign, manage it, all that kind of stuff, in the description below, I'm going to link over to a free Google Ads course that's here on the YouTube channel. But if you're somebody, let's say that you're the owner of a local business, you want somebody to build all this for you, set it up, manage it, optimize it, kind of take care of all this so you don't have to worry about it. In the description below, there's also going to be a link over to a free consultation. You can fill that out. It'll get sent over to me. I can see if I can help you out from there. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I hope you got a little bit of value out of it. And if you did, a like and subscribe is always appreciated. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks.